Democrats have to stop thinking that what the voters dream about is to be hassled. If you buy a shed at Costco, it comes with this warning. Warning, this product can expose you to wood dust. Wood dust. No kidding, which is known to the state of California to cause cancer. That's right, California thinks you're going to snort your shed. I don't want to blow Pinocchio, I just want to put the lawnmower away.
Maher is now going after Democrats over policies that critics say are hurting the country. And honestly, the whole thing feels both funny and shocking at the same time.
As Barack Obama once said, one of the biggest lessons he learned as president was there is no such thing as shovel-ready projects. Environmental impact statements used to be a few pages long. Now they're thousands of pages of legalistic nonsense and take an average of 4.5 years to complete, with thousands of bureaucrats filling out millions of paper forms that kill hundreds of forests to answer the question, is this good for the environment?
Democrats lost power almost 2 years ago, but Maher says their policies are still around, still affecting things even today. His criticism was very harsh, like a full attack with no holding back at all. So go ahead, press that subscribe button, and let's jump right into it.
You couldn't do it. The state has almost 400,000 regulations. People are leaving these kind of states for places where they're not, they feel the heavy breath of government on them. It's not that hard for Democrats to understand this, but they seem to be incapable of doing anything about it.
Maher started by reminding everyone how deeply Democratic policies spread into everyday American life, and how they still haven't gone away. The rules they created didn't disappear when they lost power. They're still active, still clashing with common sense, and still affecting regular people in real ways. Take California's gender-neutral toy aisle law. It sounds so strange that people still can't believe it's real. But it is, and it's still in place today. Then there are the soft on-crime policies, which critics say make it harder for police to do their jobs, while homeless camps continue to grow on city streets, turning sidewalks into long-term living spaces. And don't forget shoplifting limits, which critics say made punishments weaker for theft, something Maher called justice shopping. These aren't old ideas sitting unused. These are active policies still working every day, slowly weakening things bit by bit, city by city, day after day.
And I think the average voter would agree that banks, chemical plants, and drug companies need watching. Telling a company, you can't dump the waste from your hog farm straight into the water supply. We're mostly all for that. But Democrats have become a parody of themselves, just making rules to make rules because it makes you feel like you're a better person. Making sure that everything bad never happens again, which you can never fully do. It just makes everyone else's life a drag. The Biden infrastructure bill has a provision that requires all new cars to install an alert system that goes off when you leave a baby in the back seat, which is something done only by crackheads and people who sadly, yes, do it on purpose.
Maher's main point hits right at the center of the issue, and it's not easy to ignore. Rules themselves are not the problem. Nobody complains about laws that actually make life safer or better. Seatbelt laws save lives. Food safety rules keep people healthy. Environmental laws help keep air and water clean. Most people agree with those kinds of rules. But critics say this is where Democrats went off track. Instead of making laws to solve real problems, they started creating policies that felt more like a performance. Actions that looked good on the surface, meant to show moral strength and get applause, instead of real results. It became more about looking good than doing good. Laws started to feel like a show, dressed up as kindness, but driven by pride and image. And while all this was happening, everyday Americans were the ones paying the price.
And after every one of us winds up bearing the cost for cars to install this alarm, you know who's going to ignore it? Crackheads and people who do it on purpose. A sensor light is not going to fix this problem, and Democrats no longer possess the common sense to understand that not every problem in the world can be fixed with a regulation. You don't tell that to the advocacy groups who also want every future car in America to only start when the driver blows into a breathalyzer. Oh great, my other car is a Karen.
Maher's next argument gets even sharper. He says Democrats believed in a risky idea that human behavior can be controlled perfectly through rules. That if you just add enough laws and restrictions, you can shape people into a better society. Maher strongly disagrees with that idea. The reality is simple. People always find ways around the system. If you build a wall, they find another way through. Fix one problem, and new ones appear quickly. Rules don't remove human nature. They just make people more creative in avoiding them. And deep down, there is one truth that no law has ever been able to change. You cannot control every part of how people behave. It's not about bad policy design or lack of money. It's simply part of human nature, and it's not going away.
Regular viewers of this program may recall my long battle to get solar power hooked up at my house. It involved this shed, which had to be built to house this solar battery. Yes, that battery needed a house to live in. And not just any house, one that had to follow the specifications of this chart. That's a real chart of the steps we had to go through to get this thing turned on.
Maher didn't keep this discussion general. He brought it into his own life, which made it feel more real. He shared a personal story to show how overwhelming too many rules can be. He tried to install solar panels at his home, something that sounds positive and environmentally friendly. But when he actually tried to do it, the process became very complicated. The cost didn't increase because of the technology. It went up because of all the rules and requirements involved. And that wasn't the only example. He also talked about replacing his garage door. Just a simple door. But he needed 5 different permits to do it. 5 permits for one door. At that point, it starts to feel less like normal governance and more like something out of a joke.
Democrats have to stop thinking that what the voters dream about is to be hassled. If you buy a shed at Costco, it comes with this warning. Warning, this product can expose you to wood dust. Wood dust. No kidding, which is known to the state of California to cause cancer. That's right, California thinks you're going to snort your shed. I don't want to blow Pinocchio, I just want to put the lawnmower away.
Maher then pointed to something that sounds almost unbelievable, but shows how extreme regulation can get. In California, people are warned about buying wooden sheds from stores like Costco. The concern is with dust and the risk of cancer. At first, it sounds like a safety measure, but when you look closer, it becomes confusing. The level of wood dust needed to actually cause harm is very high. It would take years of heavy exposure, not just building a shed in your backyard. But instead of explaining that clearly, the warning is placed on the product anyway. So instead of helpful information, people get a scary message without proper context. Maher says this is not real protection. It's fear being presented as policy, and he clearly disagrees with it.
Environmental impact statements used to be a few pages long. Now they're thousands of pages of legalistic nonsense and take an average of 4.5 years to complete. Thousands of bureaucrats filling out millions of paper forms that kill hundreds of forests to answer the question, is this good for the environment?
This is where the issue stops being just annoying and starts becoming more serious. When you look at the cost of all these rules, the numbers become hard to ignore. It's no longer just about inconvenience. It's about money and growing debt. Think about it. Every extra permit costs money. Every repeated check adds more expense. Every new office created to oversee another office uses more taxpayer money. These costs don't just add up. They grow bigger and bigger over time. There are even cases where the paperwork for a project costs more than the project itself. The system becomes more expensive than the thing it's supposed to manage. And inside all of this, part of the country's rising debt continues to grow slowly, one rule at a time.
In San Francisco, the city's so nice you'll step in poop twice. There's an area where homeless people were urinating and defecating, and it was starting to annoy the people breaking into cars. So the city tried to build a public toilet last year, but then gave up when the cost hit $1.7 million. Not $1.7 million for a public toilet system, $1.7 million for one toilet.
Then Maher gives an example that really stands out. In San Francisco, about $1.7 million was spent on a single public toilet. Just one toilet, not a full building, not a large project. Something that should normally cost much less. But here's the part Maher focuses on. The system says all these rules exist to prevent corruption, make sure work is done properly, and protect public money. That sounds good in theory, but in reality, it can do the opposite. More rules can create more chances for problems to hide. More steps can make it easier to take advantage of the system. Instead of removing corruption, it can make it harder to see. The result is not a cleaner system, but a more complicated one where problems still exist, just in new forms.
And this wasn't some magic toilet that catches your phone when you drop it. So then a private company took pity on San Francisco and offered to build them their toilet for free. But after, quote, project management, construction management, architecture and engineering fees, permits, civic design review, surveys, contract preparation, and cost estimation, the free toilet was still going to cost almost $1 million. You know, if you tack on fees like that, you're not a city, you're an airline.
This is where the issue becomes real for people living in California. It's no longer just a political debate. It's something they deal with in everyday life. The effects show up in delays, rising costs, and unfinished projects. Take the high-speed rail system. It has received billions of dollars, but it's still not complete. There is no finished system, only delays and changing plans. Then there are wildfires. Every year, they cause serious damage. There are ways to reduce the risk, but those actions often get delayed because of long approval processes. By the time permission is given, the damage has already happened. Critics say in situations like this, the system is not just slow. It actually becomes part of the problem, creating real consequences that people cannot ignore.
It feels like San Francisco is actually proud of being impossible. Asked about the toilet, a spokesman for the Department of Public Works said, "We are a city of public input." Okay, but I'm stepping in public output. Meanwhile, the median time to get approval to build a house there, 627 days. That's 217 days longer than it took to build the Empire State Building. You need 87 permits, 15 from the Planning Commission, 26 from the Public Utilities Commission and the Fire Department, 19 from building inspectors, 17 from Public Works, 10 related to public spaces, and 1 from a guy in a t-shirt that says Federal Boob Inspector.
And this is the main idea behind Maher's strong criticism of democratic governance, a message that is becoming harder for people to dismiss. From warning labels on simple sheds to extremely expensive public toilets, from multiple permits for small home repairs to large projects that never seem to finish, the pattern is clear. This is not just a few isolated cases. Critics say it shows a bigger issue, a system filled with too many rules, growing bureaucracy, and policies focused more on image than results. Complicated systems started to look like good management, and paperwork started to be treated like real progress. Laws were often created to show intention rather than solve real problems. And in the end, regular people are left dealing with the results. Maher's main point cuts through everything. Responsibility should not depend on political sides. If something is not working, it should be called out, no matter who created it. And that is exactly what he is doing here.